Bhante, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can't hear you, Bhante.
I can hear you, Shobha. We had some technical issue.
Yeah, Bhante, I can hear you also now. Bhante, thank you for sending that second contact for the Mahabodhi.
Yeah.
But I already contacted them at the same email that you sent me,
All right.
and it came back undelivered.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. How do you send your donations, Bhante?
I sent it by cashier's check to that address in California.
Oh, you send it to California. Okay.
Okay, friends, we're going to start now.
I'll get in touch with her later. From Donation Mahabodhi Society India, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Prashant will try to send you some information on that.
Okay. Thanks, Prashant.
Okay, friends, let's go ahead and start with reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like to join. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. What's going on? So friends, I don't know if you can see me or not, but So welcome to this Wednesday evening's Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So tonight we are going to continue with reviewing the Sammaditthi Sutta that we started reviewing last week. Now I say reviewing because we've covered this sutra in the past on these programs in the last couple of years. But reviewing them also is good to review them fairly often so that we can remember the teachings. And I hope all of you by now have read the link to that sutta that I had sent out in the last, both past 2 weeks. Now, last week we went over the first 3 sort of paragraphs or sections of the Sammaditthi Sutta. And the sutta is it's a discourse delivered by Venerable Sariputta, the chief disciple of the Buddha, and to a group of monks. And because the monks were asking, he asked the monks, one of right view, it is said. How is one of right view? So I'm not going to repeat the 3 sections that I went over last week, but the first section is, I'm just going to shortly paraphrase it. When a noble disciple understands the wholesome, the root of the unwholesome, or the unwholesome, the root of the unwholesome, and the wholesome and the root of the wholesome, in that way he is of one of right view, whose view is straight, who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma, and has arrived at this true Dhamma. So that usually refers to a Sotapanna. Now, the unwholesome, basically, he defines it as not following the 5 precepts, or the 5 major unwholesome or negative karmic actions of body, speech, and mind. You should all know them by now. I'm not going to repeat them. And the root of those unwholesome actions, the root of breaking all the precepts, one or all of them. So the root is greed, hatred, and delusion. And the wholesome is basically the opposite of that. That means when one understands the good effects of following the precepts, that means freedom from guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, and understands the root of the unwholesome, which is the opposite of greed, hatred, and delusion, non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom. So that's the first definition of the right view, when a person understands that. Now, that could be a little bit vague to a lot of people. But anyway, then the monk's question, well, can you explain it in a different way? Is there any other type of right view? And then he explains about the 4 nutriments. Saying when one understands the 4 nutriments, then one understands when he understands the nutriment, the origin of nutriment, the cessation of nutriment, and the way leading to the cessation of nutriment, in that way one is also of right view, is arrived at this true Dhamma. Now, when one truly understands these categories that he's talking about, one would become a Sotapanna, because that's really what the Buddha means by right view, is becoming a Sotapanna, that you have that supramundane right view, which is the direct understanding, full understanding of no self, of impermanence and no self. But, for the sake of a lot of people, they say, well, we're lay people, what about us, who are not Sotapannas? Okay, so, it could be at least any kind of understanding about these things could help, but really to be right view, it has to have achieved that breakthrough at least to the stage of the Sotapanna. But people will argue with that, but if you really understand the teachings of the suttas, the Buddha it's meant by that. So it's something that people should strive to work toward. And it's not that difficult if one just applies themselves. Okay, then the third section is the Four Noble Truths itself. Now, the Four Noble Truths are the standard definition of right view. It means understanding what suffering is, all the different levels of suffering, understanding the cause of suffering, what brings about suffering, how it continues, and then how the suffering can end, or that there can be an end to suffering, and then the way to live, think, and meditate, or the Noble Eightfold Path, to bring the end of suffering. Now, those Four Noble Truths, that is the standard and traditional definition of right view, and it is contrasted with ignorance. So ignorance is not understanding the nature of suffering, not understanding the cause of suffering, and that suffering can be brought to an end, not understanding the path. And only a Sotapanna really fully understands those, because they've had that deep penetration and insight to know self, especially because that's the deepest cause of suffering, is clinging to the sense of I, me, and mine, and then all of the actions of greed and hatred that arise because of clinging and identifying with I, me, and mine, and building up our view of self. Now we want to go on to the next sections of the sutta, which are so at the end, when the Buddha says, when a noble disciple has thus understood suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the way leading to the cessation of suffering, that person here and now makes an end of suffering. In that way, too, a noble disciple is one of right view, and has arrived at this true Dhamma. When he says here and now makes an end of suffering, is essentially that means that person has attained the arahantship, or the full stage of liberation. So any of those stages, from the Sotapanna through to the once return and never return, in the stage of the Arahant. If you don't understand these technical terms, and we've given talks about them before, those are the types of persons that, from the Dhamma point of view, from the Buddha's definition, is only they have really attained to the right view. That means the supramundane right view. But one can practice the Dhamma with the mundane right view, but the goal of practicing the mundane right view is to eventually reach the supramundane right view, the stage of the Sotapanna. Now, after Venerable Sariputta has explained this third section, he goes on the monks keep asking him, well, okay, well, give us some more, can you explain it in another way? So then he says, okay, friends, there might be another way in which a noble disciple is one of right view and has arrived at this true Dhamma. There might be, friends. And then he goes on to explain it. When a noble disciple understands aging and death, the origin of aging and death, the cessation of aging and death, and the way leading to the cessation of aging and death, in that way, that person is one of right view, and has arrived at this true Dhamma. And I'm not going to go on and repeat all the meanings of what is aging and death, because I want you to read this yourself. That's the only way, just hearing the talk about it, going one ear out the other, no, you got to read it. It's better to read these suttas several times so it sinks into your mind. Anyway, any of those who are familiar with the sutta, basically the way he's explaining it, that means understanding aging and death, the cause, the cessation, and the way leading to the aging. And these are a repetition of the Four Noble Truths, basically. And incorporating the 12 links of the dependent origination, or the Paticca Samuppada, that we'll probably go over at some other time. But then we've already gone through them before. I've given talks on them. Okay. And any of those who are familiar with the Paticca Samuppada, the 12 links of dependent origination, will recognize these sections that we're going on. So he said aging and death. One understands aging and death. So the next section is, then they say, well, can you explain it in another way? So then Sariputta says, yes, when one understands birth, the origin of birth, the cessation of birth, and the way leading to the cessation of birth, in that way one is also of right view, has arrived at this true Dhamma. And again, you can read what he means by that. The birth, the supramundane birth, or the mundane birth means the baby coming out of the womb. But the supramundane birth happens every moment of the mind when the ego and the mental process is born again. And it repeats itself. The process of impermanence in the mental process is arising and vanishing. This whole 12 links is arising and vanishing at each moment. Now that's called the supramundane understanding about Paticca Samuppada, and also the supramundane understanding about the nature of consciousness. So, having said that, having understood birth, the cause of birth, the cessation of birth. Now, what is the cause of birth? Becoming is the cause of birth, or being. So this word upadana is a word that means it's bhava. The word translated as being or becoming is bhava, and it's part of the meaning of bhavana actually comes from the word bhava, but sometimes it's translated as being, but I prefer to use the translation that's often used too as becoming, because it's the karmic becoming that increases the sense of I. And I is being, that means you're existing. It's the I that's being, existing in either the human realm, the animal realm, the deva realm, and so on. And it takes the karma to reach those realms. So, we create the karma to be born as a human being. We create the karma to be born as an animal. We create the karma to be born as a deva or any of the other realms. So it's the karma that actually is the bhava. It's called karma bhava. It's a technical Pali word, kama bhava. Because it's the karma that we accumulate that keeps driving this cycle of the mind. So when one understands becoming, the cause of becoming, and how it continues, not only the cause, but how it continues, because it's continually continuing. From the moment we are born to the moment we die, we're continually creating karma, basically. And then the cessation of karma becoming or being, and then the path leading to that, which is again the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is always that the fourth of, the fourth noble truth and the fourth of all of these things. The path leading to the cessation of birth, path leading to the cessation of becoming, and then the next one is the clinging. So again, after the Sariputta had mentioned, finished that description of the becoming, the monks again, they said, well, can you explain it in a different way? He said, okay, if you can't understand becoming, then understand clinging. When one understands clinging, the cause of clinging, the cessation of clinging, the path leading to the cessation of clinging, then one will have become one is of right view and has attained to the right view and arrived at the true Dhamma. And then he just keeps repeating it with craving. Because anybody who's familiar with the Paticca Samuppada will see that this is the reverse sequence of the dependent origination, which starts with ignorance and leads up to, the suffering and death. Now it's starting at suffering and death and working its back way toward ignorance. I know this might seem confusing to people who haven't heard it before, and that's why it's a profound doctrine. And it's not that easy to understand, at least from a deeper point of view. Okay, then craving. When one understands craving, the cause of craving, the cessation of craving, the path leading to the cessation of craving, then that person is also one of right view. And then he goes on to repeat the same thing for feeling. Where they ask, well, can you explain it in another way? And he says, yeah, when one understands feeling, the cause of feelings, the cessation of feelings, and the path leading to the cessation of feelings, then one also will attain, sotapanna, or attain the right view. Because all of these, experiences will lead to that, glimpse of the mental liberation. So having explained those the feelings, then contact is the cause of feeling. So he's saying when one understands contact, the origin of contact, the cessation of contact, and the path leading to the cessation of contact, then one will arrive at the right view. And again, if you don't understand what contact is, read it about it in this right here, 46. It's contact of the senses, basically. And then it goes on to, again, they ask for more. Can you explain it in another way? They're kind of playing games with Sariputta because they all know this. But, it's a way that they can have some interesting Dhamma discussion. So Sariputta goes along with it. He doesn't call them stupid idiots. He just says, okay, yeah, he kind of playing a little game with it. So he says, yes, when one understands the sixfold sense basis, the cause of the sixfold sense basis, the cessation of the sixfold sense basis, and the path leading to the cessation of the sixfold sense basis, then one would have arrived at this right view. And then it goes on to then the next section, which is the page here. What happened to my page? Anyway, after the sixfold sense-based, then there's the mentality and materiality. So when one understands nama rupa, that means the body and mind, and how the body and mind came to be, and how it ceases and the way leading to its cessation, then one also comes to have the right view. And then what is the cause of the mentality and materiality? That means like the new baby when it's born, when the conception happens, as the baby develops 9 months in the womb, the 5 aggregates, start to get developed. This means the mentality and materiality. But especially at birth, when the baby comes out of the womb, it has the contacts. But the body and mind is already pretty much kind of developed at that point, at the time of the birth. So when one understands, again, the cause of birth, and then they will understand what is the cause of the mentality and the materiality as well. And then the consciousness. When one understands consciousness, the origin of consciousness, the cessation of consciousness, and the path leading to the cessation of consciousness, then one also becomes one of right view. And that consciousness basically is the ego consciousness and the relinking consciousness, which goes from one life to another, but also the ego-dominated consciousness. And that's hard for people to understand. But the Buddha didn't have ego-dominated consciousness. So the 5 aggregates of the Buddha actually kind of ceased because he attained full enlightenment and lived for 45 years with the body and mind, but he wasn't producing ego consciousness. So this consciousness included in the 5 aggregates means the ego consciousness and the dualistic consciousness. So that's why a person can attain the state of cessation of conditioned consciousness, an arahant, because he's not producing ego-dominated consciousness, and they're not creating karma based on that. Again, I know this may be difficult for many of you to understand, but again, that's why right view isn't just something superficial. This is very, very deep and powerful. To gain the right view. That's why it's called supramundane right view, because nobody down outside of Walmart or Home Depot or Safeway or anybody else is going to be able to understand absolutely nothing about these 5 aggregates or the nature of consciousness. That's why it's supramundane. It takes a deep level of meditation and so on to understand these topics, these realities. Okay. So after having said the consciousness, then the mental formations. What is the cause of the consciousness? It's the mental formations. So when one understands mental formations, the cause of mental formations, the cessation of mental formations, and the path leading to the cessation of mental formations, one also then attains this right view. And the mental formations also include the mentality and the materiality. That's why when you understand one of these, you understand all of them. But it's just different ways that people may tend to want to contemplate these things. And then finally, it's ignorance, because ignorance In the paticca samuppada, dependent on ignorance, arise the mental formations. And so, the ignorance is the cause of the mental formations. That's why when one understands ignorance, the origin of ignorance, the cessation of ignorance, and the path leading to the cessation of ignorance, then one has arrived at this true Dhamma. And then what's interesting is that there's one more section in this, which is the taints. So this particular sutra is one of a few that actually talks about the taints. Because usually the paticca samuppada ends with ignorance, and the taints are covered within the categories of craving and clinging that we already mentioned in this as the fifth or sixth of the links of dependent origination. But anyway, he repeats the taints. So at the end, he says, give me one more time. Okay, you tell us 12 ways to, get right view. You got one more for me? And so then the Buddha said, okay. He said, okay, friends, when one understands the taints, the origin of the taints, the cessation of the taints, and the way leading to the cessation of the taints, in that way, the person becomes one of right view, whose view is straight, who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma, and has arrived at this true Dhamma. And what are the taints? Because some people haven't heard this word before. They're called the asavas. So somebody who is not that versed in the suttas and the Dhamma may not have heard of this word before, the asavas, or what is translated as the taints. They taint our mind. So there are three taints. The taint of sensual desire. So it means when the mind is craving sensual desires and wanting things, nice, things to eat, to see, smell, taste, touch, and think about. That means they're craving these things that bring pleasant. So that's a taint of the mind because it keeps us creating more karma and keeps our sense of self alive and appearing to be real, because it's this self that wants these objects. And then the taint of being, that means craving for existence, wanting to live forever. That's why people don't want to die. You want to keep living. Of course, at some point they might want to die because the body gets too old, they can't do anything. But, if people had their druthers, if they didn't get old and they could have perfect health for thousands of years, probably most people might want to keep living. So there's this craving for existence. It's called the taint of being. That means wanting to go on to live. And then the taint of ignorance. And ignorance means not understanding the truth, not understanding these Four Noble Truths and all these other categories that have been explained. And so, the very last paragraph of the sutra is, when a noble disciple has thus understood the taints, the origin of the taints, the cessation of the taints, and the way leading to the cessation of the taints, they entirely abandon the underlying tendency to lust. They abandon the underlying tendency to aversion. They extirpate the underlying tendency to the conceit of I am, or I, me, and mine. And by abandoning ignorance and arousing true knowledge, they here and now make an end of suffering. In that way, too, a noble disciple is one of right view, whose view is straight, who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma, and has arrived at this true Dhamma. And that is what the Venerable Sariputta said. And the monks were satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's words. Now, in the commentary to the sutta, it mentions that, as I've already mentioned, most of these monks, already at least have heard the Buddha's teaching about paticca samuppada, and they kind of already knew these things, but just to prolong the conversation, they were so thrilled with, Sariputta's erudite explanation of these, this procedure, the right view, that they wanted to keep hearing more. And so they didn't want him to stop. So that's why they kept on, can you explain one more way, a different way? They all knew these ways already, but they just wanted to hear it again. So that's why a lot of people, when they ask questions, they've heard a lot of Dhamma before, but they heard it, but maybe they just want to hear it again, because, it helps to stick in their mind. Because if we don't go on thinking about it, it gets overlaid with so much other adhamma, undhamma stuff that we accumulate in the daily life. Okay, friends, so that is the end of this sutta. And let's see if there's any chat questions that came up. Okay, this one question. From the being section, there are these three kinds of being: sense sphere being, fine material being, and immaterial being. What are the examples of fine material being and immaterial being? Well, that's a good question, because these terms are not common knowledge. If you go out and ask somebody, again, down in front of Walmart, or even any kind of normal, just a Buddhist by birth, they're not going to be able to answer that question either. So the three kinds of being I've mentioned: becoming, it's equivalent to becoming. The sense sphere being, fine material being, means the bodies of people who have attained the jhanas and are reborn in the Brahma realms. And there's 16 Rupa jhana realms that belong to the Brahma, various type of Brahma realms, or the Deva realms. And they have bodies of light. It's called fine material. It's not, you can't touch it or see it like we can, grab your wrist and it feels solid. No. Those beings have bodies of sort of light, like a rainbow light. You can't see it with the naked eye. That's why we can't see these beings. But you're born there only if you've mastered the jhanas. So there's not probably that many people who've mastered the jhanas, so there's probably not many of those beings in those realms. But that's what's called fine material being. And then the immaterial being is people who've mastered the arupa jhanas. And that's even a little bit more complicated to understand. But all the other beings, animals, belong in the sense sphere realm. Hells and heavens are also in the sense sphere realm. Because they have senses. Animals have senses. They have eyes, ears, nose. I mean, look at Mita, she eats and smells and sees things, and, and even devas have a certain amount of senses of sight and hearing. They may not eat food like we do, and coarse food, and they have different types of bodies. But anyway, they have senses of some kind, and even beings in the hells and so on. But it's our karma. The main thing to understand, it's our karma that gets us born into these realms. That's why that becoming is, I prefer to use the term becoming. When you say being, people, being, it's like, what do you mean being? But it's the karma that you create is going to form the kind of a body and life that you're going to have in the future. Okay. Okay, what are the clinging sections? There are these 4 kinds of clinging: clinging to sensual pleasures, clinging to views, clinging to rituals, and clinging to a doctrine of self. It appears clinging is specific to mostly to the sense sphere beings. Yes, it primarily is so. There could be a little bit of that clinging even in the Brahma realms, because they're not totally free of desire, but they have desire for, let's say, the bliss in meditation. Let's say you're meditating and you're no longer distracted by pain or sounds or or even your thoughts, and you start to experience the piti and the sukha of, the jhana experiences. These are fine material and mental vibrations that the average person cannot experience. So those are examples of fine materiality or mentality. And so that's why people get addicted to jhanas. They want to just hang out in that bliss, piti and sukha, for hours and hours, and that's a kind of clinging. That's why if you just practice the jhanas just to have those piti and the sukha, that's why that's called mundane, because that's a clinging. You're clinging to the pleasure that comes out of meditation. Or visions. Let's say you have some vision. You saw the Buddha flying through the air, or you saw Jesus Christ, or you saw any number of other type of visions that could arise in meditation. If you cling to them, that is also called fine material clinging, because it's a mental image which belongs to the fine material, sort of vibration. Yeah. So anyway, maybe the people in the lower Brahma realms, they would still have some kind of clinging, but it would be the fine material clinging, not the coarse sense sphere clinging. Anyway, this is difficult to understand these things for anybody who has not experienced these deeper levels of consciousness and understood the nature of our consciousness to project and create things out of that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, they can also have clinging to the doctrine of a self, yes, because they haven't eradicated the ego entirely, but they've overcome the belief in a self, but they can still have clinging to it. There's a difference between not believing in it, but still kind of clinging to it, sort of subtly. Just like you can know cigarettes are bad for you, but you still smoke them, right? But at least you know they're bad for you, but so you're gonna decrease the amount of your smoking. Okay, let's say if you had 3 packs of cigarettes and then you found out the doctor said, you got lung cancer, you're going to cut out half your lung, then you say, okay, I'll reduce my smoking, So smoking is bad, but you do it anyway. In the same way with other kind of defilements, even with, we know they're bad, but because the habits are so deeply rooted, there still remains these subtler forms of clinging until you have reached at least the stage of an anagami or the arahant stage. Okay, this next question, it says, Venerable Sariputta says at the ending of each of those paragraphs, he says the person has arrived at this true Dhamma. Is there an untrue or dark Dhamma in the case of universal balance? Yes, the true Dhamma means understanding suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Untrue Dhamma means thinking that the world is a source of happiness and people just want to eat, drink, and be merry, and they don't believe in karma, and that's an untrue Dhamma from the Dhamma point of view. Okay, so all these things are being said from the point of view of the Dhamma. The true Dhamma means understanding all the levels of suffering and how we inadvertently causes suffering from not understanding these noble truths, not understanding anicca, dukkha, and anatta, the core teachings of impermanence and no self. So, the true Dhamma means understanding the liberated consciousness. When you start to understand what pure awareness is and the difference between pure awareness and ego-dominated consciousness. That's the main thing. That's probably the deepest aspect of Dhamma to understand. You can understand about anicca, okay, everything's impermanent, but when you actually see that impermanence, and especially when the ego starts dissolving, once you've developed the appropriate level of concentration, mindfulness, and wisdom, as I've repeated so many times in the past already, the ego consciousness starts to expand and starts to fade away. That is when you start understanding the Dhamma, only when you've experienced that. And have experienced not just once, but know how to get into that state, fairly often. Then that's when you really start understanding the Dhamma from that point of view of the supramundane states. Okay, friends, I think, we've gone on long enough now because we still want to have our meditation practice. So we're going to go ahead and take a short break now, and just a couple minutes, and then come back and do some deep breathing and stretches to get centered in the body, and then have our meditation practice. Okay? See you back in a few minutes. Okay, friends, so try to stand straight, relax your shoulders and arms at the sides. Keep the chin lifted up level with the floor. Gently close your eyes. Just feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel the weight of the body pressing the feet on the floor. Feel the straight legs over your feet. Feel the hands and fingers at your side, near your hip. Feel the clothing touching the skin of your arms and chest. Feel your head balanced on top of the neck. Feel your eyes in the socket. Try to feel the outline of the body and begin some 3-part breathing or deep, slow breathing. Taking 2 or 3 seconds to expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Holding the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds. And slowly breathe out, feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this mindfulness of breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to combine this breathing with this movement, stretching movement. So on the next in-breath, raise your arms over the head, interlock your fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, stretch upward. The out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of your head. Again, in-breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend back a little bit. The arch in the spine. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Third time, hold the upward stretch longer, and bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. Now release the fingers, the arms back to the sides on the out breath. Just close your eyes. Just keep feeling the body. Feel the increased pulsations in your hands and fingers. Feel the clothing touching the skin. Just remember the present moment of standing, standing, standing. Just letting go of your thoughts. Just let your thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just keep the breathing, standing body in the front of the awareness. Just continually remember standing, standing, standing. And the next in breath, lift up on the toes while raising the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other, and stretch up. The out breath, come back down. And coordinate the movement with the breathing. Feel the body raising up with the in breath. Out. Once more, in. Out. Close your eyes, relax. Keep feeling the body, don't let the mind jump to thoughts. Keep remembering standing, standing, standing. Feeling the increased body sensation, any aches or pains, itchy, prickly sensation. And next we'll do the knee bending. On an in breath, lift up on the toes again, raising the arms up front for balance. On the out breath, bend the knees, lower down, balancing on the balls of the feet. Come down into the squatting position if you can. And feel the muscles in the legs pushing the body up on the in breath. Up on the toes. Out. In. Out. In. Out. Close the eyes. Feel the increased heart beating, other pulsations. Feel the clothing touching the skin. Remember standing, standing, present moment of the body, here and now. Okay, next we'll do the side bending. On the next in-breath, raise both arms up. Keep your fingers and arms straight, close to your head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side as far as you comfortably can. Keep the arms and hands parallel to each other like a railroad track. In-breath, lift up. And the other side, out-breath. In. Out. In. Out. Once more to each side, out-breath. The out-breath, lower the arms. Feel the eyes and the sockets, try to feel the outline of the standing body. Head on top, arms at the sides, feet pressing the floor, clothing touching the skin. Should be able to feel all those sensations as though you were looking into a mirror. Remember standing, standing. Okay, now spread the legs and feet about 3 feet apart. We'll do twisting from right to left, holding the arms out at the sides. Breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, then twist to the other side, out breath. In breath front. Keep alternating sides, out breath. Out. Once more to each side. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Don't let your mind be lost in thoughts. Remember standing. standing. Feel all the different sensations. Now place the hands together at the chest. Breathe in, hands over the head. Out breath, hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower down. Try to keep the back upright. Feel the stretch in your knees and hip. In breath out. Leg muscles. Out. Out breath. Next we'll do the forward and backward bending. Let the hands touch the front of your legs. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands come to your kneecaps the first time. Keep the arms straight. Flatten your spine. Feel the straight legs. You get the hump out of the spine. Arch your spine down. In breath, lift up. Hands under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. Out breath, gently bend backwards. Keep your eyes open. And the arch in the spine. In breath, lift up. And again, out breath, forward. Let the hand come below the keep the head up. In breath. In the back bends, be careful. In. Third time. The hands come down as far as you can toward your ankles or feet and then hold it longer. Stretch in the back of your legs, let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Lift up. Once more, the back bend, be careful. In breath. The out breath, relax your shoulders and arms, close the eyes. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating. Feel the body exactly as it is, here and now. And bring your legs and feet closer together. And one last simple exercise, the head turning from right to left. With the in-breath, turn the head to the right. Look over your right shoulder. And the twist in the neck. Out breath all the way back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. If you have a stiff neck, just be careful. In breath back to the right. Out left. In right. Out left. In breath, let the head stop in the middle. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating, activated life force. Try to feel that awakened organic aliveness all over the body. Okay, so now let's mindfully make our way back to sitting places, get ready for sitting meditation. Just get comfortable in your sitting posture. Try to establish the natural inward curve of the lower spine and gently arch lower spine inwards. Feel that natural position. Keep your chin lifted up, level with the floor. Try to imagine a straight line from your head down to the spinal column to the base of the spine. Gently close your eyes. Try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Feel the head balanced on top. Feel the eyes in the socket. Feel the outline of the body with the shoulders, arms, hands, buttocks pressing the seat, feet pressing the floor. Try to hold that outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. Then begin taking some deep, slow breaths like we did in the yoga session. Take 2 or 3 seconds to feel the expanding and contracting of the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest, holding the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds. So all the oxygen can get into the bloodstream. And slowly breathe out. And feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs on the out breath. Take several more breaths like that, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to try counting the breaths from 1 to 10. See if we can make it to 10 breaths without the mind getting lost in thoughts. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing and concentration. So with the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the air in the lungs 1 or 2 seconds. And on the out breath, also count to 1. Feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. Out 10. Discontinue the counting. Let your breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. And continue to feel it, to observe it. To feel the subtler, shorter, expanding and contracting sensation. Especially try to feel where the clothing touches the skin of your stomach, rib cage, your chest as it expands and contracts, producing sensation. Just know when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling those sensations, subtle sensations. Try to be like a scientist looking down through a microscope, focusing in on the breathing process. Feel the whole expanding in breath from beginning to end, and the brief pause. The contracting out breath from beginning to end, and the brief pause. Over and over and over again. Letting go of your thought. Let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Keep the attention focused on movements of the breathing. To help stay focused, you can make these brief mental reminders of in, sitting, out, out, sitting, in, sitting, out, out, sitting. The ongoing, continuous, present moment, the sitting, breathing body. Try to tune in and feel those 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath, the brief pause, the contracting out breath, and the brief pause. Especially be alert for the brief pauses between the breaths. May just be a fraction of a second, might be 1 or 2 seconds or even longer. In those pauses between the breaths, feel the outline of the sitting body, straightening up the posture, find yourself slouching. Try to notice how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you feel the sensations more in the abdomen, other times feel it in the rib cage, your chest. It's always changing. Notice the changes in the breaths, the breathing develops a strong concentration, alertness and concentration. More sensations you can notice, the less time to either space out or get lost in thought. Let's turn up the power of the mental microscope. In, sitting, out, out, sitting. Even while feeling the breathing, you might feel even the heart beating. Middle of the breathing, as the heart is beating, pumping that oxygen out into the bloodstream. Be alert for any other sensations coming and going in or around the breathing, around the body. Try to hold that outline of the body and the mind's eye, breathing in the center of that. You catch yourself lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. Thinking, let go of the thought. Take a deep, slow breath. Bring the mind back into the body. Back to in, sitting. Out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. If you're having difficulty with too many thoughts, or sleepiness, go back to do more 3-part deep, slow breathing, counting your breaths by yourself from 1 to 10. To help stay awake out of your thought. You can try contemplating the Dhamma, get right view, contemplate suffering, understand what suffering is, what is the cause of suffering, how does suffering end, the path leading to the end of suffering, the way to live, think, and meditate. In sit shifting out, out, sitting. Stay awake, alert, centered in the breathing body, the present moment. This breathing body is the natural connection, consciousness to the present moment. We lose that connection to the breathing body, the present moment. The mind either goes to sleep or gets lost in various distracting thoughts, greed, hatred, and delusion, suffering. Let's try to understand that, cultivate that continuous connection, the breathing body. It's always right there, just underneath your nose. 4 billion cell body, constantly vibrating. You have good awareness and detachment to the flow of impermanence. Just try to become like an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors and windows. There's the sensitive microphone in the house. that knows but doesn't know, a knowing awareness, present moment awareness. Try to tune into that by feeling the breathing body, the mind can tune into that. What thoughts are triggered off by that sound vibration? Don't let the mind jump to the future. Dukkha pata ca nidukkha maya pata ca nibbaya soka pata ca nisoka hontu sabbi pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. And on this Thanksgiving evening, let us end by sending out some thought vibrations of metta to all the people, especially in this U.S., celebrating, visiting relatives, traveling on Thanksgiving. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance. May all beings be free from self-created pains and sufferings of body and mind due to their unskillful thought, speech, and action. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, understanding the ultimate interconnectedness and interdependence of all things. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. In the meditation, I invite you to chant the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do the chanting on a long out breath, 3 repetitions. Chanting, breathing. Hold the hands together at the chest if you like. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. Now place the hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep breath. As you breathe in, stretch your head back, pull the hands on your knees, arch your spine backwards, look up at the ceiling. On the in-breath, lift the head up. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. I hope you're able to have at least some minutes of some peaceful awareness, or some insights, getting some maybe glimpses of the right view, understanding our mind, the conditioned mind, and the way our mind is trapped in its various habits. Okay, friends, so wish you all have a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow, and tomorrow night we're starting a 3-day retreat here at Low. There'll be about 15 people or so coming for that retreat. And as I mentioned in the mailing I sent out yesterday, that the Dhamma talks during this retreat starting on, well, the Dhamma talks will start on Friday at 2 o'clock. On Friday and Saturday, I'll be giving the Dhamma talk at 2 o'clock, and it'll be broadcast on the Zoom. The same link that you had now, the same link will be used for those Dhamma talks on this Friday and Saturday, and Sunday morning, the closing talk at 10 a.m. So you're welcome to tune in to those and do some extra meditation this weekend. All right? I wish you
Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
all to be well, safe, mindful, and wise. If you're traveling out, or if you're going to have social contacts with your relatives or family, remember your M&Ms, to do the M&Ms every hour, to keep from moving too fast, thinking too fast, slow down. Okay, so perhaps we'll see you again next week. So,
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Sadhu, sadhu, Bhante. Mangala.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.